How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
Not the effort England were looking for as they bow out of the Champions Trophy and bid goodbye to their captain, Jos Buttler. They fold up for 179 inside 40 overs in Karachi as South Africa send out quite the message to the knockout stages, which they are now confirmed to be a part of, having bowled England out for less than 207. We dissect that first innings on Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricket Info Match Day, where we're in the company of Anil Kumble and Nick Knight. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Nick, I saw that pre-show where there was so much debate around what England need to do, what England need to change. Sadly, an innings which is fairly emblematic of all those problems you touched on.
Yeah, and so you ask yourself, are you surprised by that? And probably the honest answer is no. Kind of end feel to it. I thought it was pretty messy. I thought it was obviously very poor. You go through the innings from the start right to the finish. I mean, there were a number of occasions where in ODI cricket, in T20 cricket, in white ball cricket generally, those batting at 5, 6, 7, 8 don't often get a chance to bat for a significant period of time. Those chances weren't taken by those in those positions. It shows, and Anil, I'm sure, will back this up, it just shows how mental this game is in terms of the importance of being in a right frame of mind to be able to go and attack the situation. And what I saw in that innings was an England team that just weren't quite, switched on in terms of what they were trying to do, a little bit of uncertainty about how they were going to approach it. And give credit to South Africa, who kind of seized upon all of that and a bit more. Mixed emotions, obviously, for both sides. But am I surprised that I've just seen that? No.
Anil, thoughts?
Yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment. I mean, you don't want England to be like this in white ball cricket and in ICC tournaments. Joe Root, who's been in great form, was in. I think the latest in the 3 games was the 6th over. So that gives you a story. You need good opening partnerships for you to sort of get into a game. Even when they scored 350 against Australia, the opening partnership was hardly there. So it's been some sort of a kind of a repetitive way of how England has approached this ODI format. And it's not been a great viewing. I mean, there were some reports saying, will England play for pride? Yes, they can go on and win this game. I mean, don't get me wrong, but the way they played, it seems like, most players have checked out. They've just said, okay, that's it, we're going home. And you can sense that in their approach, in the kind of batting when we saw the pitch, it looked like it's a really a good batting surface. And unfortunately, England have, again, not really done anything good for themselves, especially with the bat.
Yeah, Brendan McCullum did say in the press conference ahead of this game that a lot of the squad are carrying the baggage of what they've been through in this tournament, and perhaps it was a performance which reflected that baggage. Nick, Anil brings up, let's start breaking down the individuals, and not just from this game, but the tournament. And Anil brings up the runs from the top. When you do the contrast of England's heyday in white ball cricket, the one thing that was an ever-present was runs from the top. The personnel might have changed. There could be Jason Roy, Johnny Bairstow, Alex Hales, Joe Root at number 3. This tournament, you had Phil Salt, Jamie Smith, 3 games, no runs from both of them in any of those 3.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really hurt England. Ben Duckett's been good, obviously, the first game. I think that's been a good promotion. I like the left-handed. Obviously, he's a top-quality player. So, that's been one of the success stories. But you're right. Phil Salt, who scored 300s prior to this, he's been very good. He's found his game. He's developed it a little bit. It's become a little bit more offside as well as leg side. He understands his game a bit better. There's a huge level of expectation, certainly back in the UK, for how he would go at the top. It just hasn't happened for him. And that has had a pretty significant impact on the rest of the, as Anil says, you want these good starts. The Jamie Smith one's interesting for me because when that was initially announced that he was going to go up to bat number 3, I think it was based around a number of factors. One, Joe Root perhaps not having to play quite as much as the power play, therefore being able to boss the middle overs. Jamie Smith quite clearly has a very high regard from Brendan McCullum, who's seen him play very well in Test match cricket. The guy's never done the job, and that was the real interesting factor when that decision was announced. It threw me back a little bit to my own playing days when we would approach major tournaments, World Cups, Champions Trophy, and all of a sudden the rabbit out of the hat, it might be Matt Pryor going up to open the batting, hasn't really done it before. It might be, back in 2003, I don't want to 99, I don't want to harp on that, but we made a late change as well, which involved me. There are a number of times where, Alistair Cook sacked on the eve of the 2015 World Cup. Jamie Smith suddenly coming into play. It's a little bit showing that England don't really quite know what their best side is. When you come into a major tournament, it's absolutely basic requirement that your team has played together for a number of games, a lot now, and have won and have got through tough situations and have developed a team camaraderie and understand where everyone fits within that role. The Jamie Smith promotion isn't so much about him, it's about where the team are and where the dynamics of the team are, and it showed that a little bit. So that's the real concern for me.
Yeah, and it had its compounding effect, didn't it, Anil? Because, as Nick points out, a move which was ostensibly designed to have Joe Root bat at number 4 so he can control the middle overs ends up in a tournament where the latest Joe Root came out to bat across 3 games was the 7th over.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't really help. If it helps if the middle order is also in great form, but they haven't been. I mean, Josh Butler, we spoke about it. Even Nick brought it up in the previous game. Saying Josh Butler is too low in the batting order. I mean, it worked for them in 2019 because there were some superstars up front and also getting some runs at the top. When your opening partnership is consistently scoring runs, then it makes sense. But Josh Butler coming in at 6, and then today he was just batting with the lower order. Because by the time he sort of got a couple of balls, they were already 5 down. So it doesn't help when you have a captain who is sort of batting so low in the batting order. He's not keeping wickets. So it's just that, as a pure batter, someone of that ability, someone who know the opposition sort of fear Josh Butler. He's coming so low in the batting order doesn't necessarily help. And I also felt that you sort of they've stuck to the same sort of combination even when things have not gone well. So I'm not really sure. They just brought in Tom Banton for one game and then dismissed that idea. Then Smith, like Nick mentioned, suddenly in a major tournament, you've asked him to move to number 3. So it seems like there's a lot of things happening, not just what we see on the field.
Yeah, also important to point out that Jamie Smith came into this tournament having played 18 List A innings, of which only 1 he'd batted in the top 3. Nick, one final individual that I want to focus on when we complete the lid on England's batting, and that is Liam Livingstone. It is, of course, a very dynamic role when you bat in that part of the order. But he came in 3 very different situations in these 3 games. Scores of 14, 10 and 9. What do you make of where Liam Livingstone is with his game, especially considering this could be a player England potentially look at as part of the leadership group going forward after Butler?
It's a really good question, and I think it's a question that a lot of us back in the UK are sort of trying to work through as to exactly where that position and his position will unfold in terms of the next look to the side. A number of factors really with Liam. One, I think when you look at what he brings potentially, and that is the key word here, potentially to the side, 3-dimensional player, can win a game in the field in terms of a great catch, a brilliant run out, can change the direction of a game in the field, can bowl these off spinners and leg spinners, which are actually becoming more effective, so that it can be used for a few overs with the ball. But essentially, when you're picking Liam Livingstone, and you just mentioned it there, 3 different times to come in, 3 different roles, if you like. It is pretty tricky. I will give players that, having played the game long enough. When you bat at 6 and 7, sometimes us guys at the top, it's a little easier for us. The game kind of plays out consistently most games into what your job and your role is. At number 5, 6, 7, it can be pretty tricky. You're constantly adjusting. And that's my point to today. I thought he had a great opportunity today to get his head down, knuckle down, work himself to a 50, maybe get yourself a really substantial score and say, I can have more responsibility in this team. I can bat higher. Look what I've just done. Now, I want to see that in Livingstone. I don't really want to see him at that match situation running down and getting stumped. I want to see someone really making the most of that given opportunity, and you don't have that many of them. So, yeah, I mean, England have got to work out where they head with Liam. I mean, he got 100 in the West Indies. I mean, he has the ability to take an attack apart. He has the ability to do it. England have got to work out whether he's doing it enough, and whether those extra bits that he brings in the field and with the ball, there's somebody else that can do that job if they're not going to stick with Livingstone.
All right, let's turn our attention towards
just
South
to add to
Africa
that.
now. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry, just to add to that, with someone like Liam Livingstone, I felt that he's not someone who likes spin straight away when he comes on. He likes the pace on the ball, and the times that he has actually done well is when he's come in around the 35th, 36th over, when most of spin is over, and then just a couple of overs of spin. If at all England wanted to move somebody to number three, maybe it was Liam Livingstone instead of Smith, because Liam Livingstone at three would have gone, give him the freedom and say, just go and do whatever you want. No pressure, because at seven, he was certainly under pressure, especially with the kind of batting lineup and the scores that England did dish out before he came into bat.
Yeah, let's now turn our attention towards South Africa. Contrasting moods in both the camps. You see the sunkenness of the English team in their batting effort. And then there is South Africa, who have, in this innings, officially qualified for the semi-finals. They were all but through. The only mathematical equation involved was a defeat of more than 200-odd runs in this game would bring Afghanistan back. That, of course, is no longer a possibility. So congratulations to South Africa, who through to the semis. Anil, that was as well-rounded an effort. Almost everyone chipped in with wickets, and the bowlers weren't just doing the work with the ball, they were also flying in the field.
Yeah, clinical, fantastic effort from South Africa, because they had to put in this kind of a performance. They're certainly on the top of their game. And in terms of, like you mentioned, every bowler sort of got the wickets, got the line right, the lengths right, and not just that. I mean, they were catching brilliantly as well. All those catches that they took, Marco Jansen, Lungi Ngidi. I think these two are exceptional in the field in terms of those catches. So overall, I think South Africa will be really, really pleased with their effort on the field. But yes, they have a job to do, just to go there and then ensure that they get these runs pretty quickly.
Yeah, worth spending some time on Marco Jansen. Of course, flew around and took two sensational catches. But Nick, the bigger damage, of course, that opening spell of his, breaking the back of England by getting the top three out.
Yeah, and I think probably actually not quite at his 100% tip-top best either, but still good enough and still mighty effective. And when you look at his role within the side, it kind of complements the bowling unit, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not just talking about how clinical they were, absolutely right. Got Ace of Rabada and Geedy, then they've got the left arm option of Marco Jansen. They've got Tabré Shamsi if they need him. They don't require him with they've got Maharaj, and then they've got Nate and Moulder, who does an excellent job. People talk about pace, and a bit more pace. Pace off often works in the middle overs. So that they've got a bowling unit that really kind of complements each other. And there's an element of consistency about their team as well. So they all kind of know where they fit in. They all feel very comfortable with their roles and what they do, and they all do them really, really well. So, yeah, I mean, what a dramatic difference in mindset between the way South Africa went about those 38.2 overs and the way England went about it.
And when we consider the potential story within the story, Anil, Marco Jansen, if you go back to the ODI World Cup, he'd started the World Cup really well and then had that outing to forget against India and Kolkata, and that had a rattling effect on the rest of his campaign. In that sense, this performance going into the knockouts is something that bodes extremely well for his confidence.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think, he's still young, very young, although he's played quite a bit of cricket. He's certainly matured. I'm sure these three wickets, and also you can see his athleticism in the field with all those catches. And he's improved a lot with his batting as well. He's contributed with the bat on many occasions for South Africa. So in that sense, he's a complete package for South Africa in that number 7 as a batting batsman, and number 7, number 8, and with the ball, with the new ball, he can bring the ball back in. He's tall, so it's not easy for the batters to just get under him. And we saw that with Phil Salt. I mean, it just took off, and it was quite steep as a bounce, and he couldn't get over it. So in that sense, he's a complete package with that ability to bowl really good deliveries and at pace. It's not easy for any batter. So yes, Marco Jansen is a perfect all-rounder for South Africa, and that's something that England don't have in their bowling lineup. They struggle to pick wickets in the power play, and they don't have that sort of. We've spoken about it in pre-match as well about that. You need that variety in your bowling attack, and that's something that South Africa have in plenty.
Yeah, this could perhaps be the right time to bring Vian Mulder into the conversation as well. Because, Nick, this is a tactical shift that South Africa made, if you consider the sort of setups they went with at the last 2 ICC men's events. Mulder's come in, between him and Jansen, they feel they get the luxury of batting till 8. And Mulder with the ball, showing that he's more than a competent seamer. Wickets in both outings. What have you made of his bowling?
Well, crucial. And again, we've made mention of this on a number of occasions. It might be Nathan Ellis, it might be Vian Mulder. Those middle overs, subcontinental conditions, pace off the ball, bowling wicket to wicket, bowling at the stumps, all the things that you hear a lot when you talk about sides being effective in the middle overs of an ODI or a T20, those middle overs, 12 to 15, whatever it might be. So the role of Vian Mulder is massive. I would focus more on him and more with the ball than with the bat. I think it clearly is good that he's more than useful with the bat, and he comes in at 7, 8, perhaps behind Marco Jansen. But for me, where I feel he's got the most impact, or could have the most impact on the match, is with his role in the middle there. And he does it time and time again. And as Anil says, he kind of complements the attack. And it's easy for us sat here just to keep comparing it to England, but I'm afraid that is, something that is making a bit of a difference. Sides have got an ability, a bowler with the ability to control, or at least have a bit more control with pace off in those middle overs, and he does it really well.
Not going to shut the lid on the South African bowling effort without a mention of the sole spinner in the pack, because Anil Keshav Maharaj, not the first time, and you can be sure not the last, taking the wickets, keeping the runs at a premium. What makes Keshav Maharaj work as consistently as he does in ODIs?
I think the control. I think he has the ball on a string, and you can see that. I mean, the way he got Liam Livingstone out, he saw him stepping out, and then he changed the pace and the trajectory as well. He bowled so slowly that he defeated the ball actually with lack of pace with Liam Livingstone. So that's something that's a typical left-arm spinner's wicket. Him and probably Mitch Santner, in terms of their control of pace, especially in white ball cricket, is something very unique. And that's what Keshav Maharaj is sort of so consistent, because he has that ability to vary his pace. He has that ability to spin the ball. Whenever there's a little bit of turn, he's the one who gets that really going. And he has that wonderful control over his length as well. We saw that. And it's not easy to get under Keshav Maharaj. In every game for South Africa that he's played, he's been extremely consistent.
Right. So that is quite a comprehensive bowling effort from South Africa. Maharaj, Mulder, Jansen. Go on, Nick.
Sorry, can I just add one more point about Maharaj? I think it's really important that he, and Anil might back this up or diss it, I don't know, but when your spinners come on in the middle overs here, how effective and how nice is it when you're 3 or 4 or 5 down? So Maharaj is benefiting a little bit from Rabada, Jansen, as we just talked about, Mulder, as we just talked about, and Geedy, breaking open England's middle order, or it might be Australia or whoever. And then with the side slightly on the back foot, the job of the spinner is made a little bit more straightforward. I'm not for one moment saying that he's not an excellent spinner. Of course he is. But we go back to this sort of well-rounded attack that everybody complements each other. Maharaj's job is a whole lot harder if he's bowling to a player on 85 and 65 who have got conditions sorted. So everybody is kind of working together to make the end result really good.
All that you guys say about
that's
this
perfect,
entire...
actually. Yeah, I think
Go on.
as a unit, I think South Africa have been brilliant. With the faster bowlers picking wickets in the power play, and then of course it certainly becomes a lot easier when a spinner has to bowl at number six and number seven, or number five and number six, rather than one and two.
Everything that you guys have said about the South African bowling mix makes me wonder whether this is the most well-rounded bowling attack. But you can hold your answers. I'll give you some time to think on it. That's an answer I will ask of you all when we reconvene for the post-match show. We'll leave this one over here for now. South Africa with 180 to chase, which will mean if they get there, they will top Group B. We will pick up the conversation at the end of South Africa's run. It is important to point out that Aiden Markram went off the field. We're told it is an issue with his right hamstring. As a precautionary measure, he is unlikely to take part in this game. So we will be back right at the end of this South Africa chase of 180 against England. So be sure to join us then on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Match Day.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.